Good morning. Thank you so much. I am excited to be here, and I'm going to make a little bit of a different case today. I'm going to say in the Fortune 500, I think the next CEO should be one of us, should be a partner leader. And I'm going to try to walk through why that case is, but let it be known in the $105 trillion that was driven in last year's GDP, every company in every industry of every size in every country is becoming a tech company. They are looking at partnerships. 82% of these CEOs are spending and investing more in partnerships. They, in every industry, in pharmaceuticals and banking and insurance and automotive and manufacturing, are coming to the realization they can't do it alone. What we have been for decades is a little bit typecast as cash registers. 75% of world trade flows indirectly. You bought your last car from a dealer, you bought your last TV from a retailer, you bought your last jar of peanut butter from a grocer. Almost everything we do in our private and professional lives goes through channels. But we are looked at that point of sale, the people that manage that point of sale. So when you're in automotive, the group that handles the dealerships is over there. The retail, the franchises, the resellers, the agents, the brokers, whatever industry you're in, it's always this group over there. The redheaded stepchildren, we don't know what they do. We just think they go out and drink with their partners and their partners keep buying and we're just gonna leave them to do what they do. But we're now being invited in to a deeper conversation. If I took the tech industry, for example, which makes up about 5% of the world's GDP, this is the way it looks in detail. Couple things to note as we go into 2024. Tech services, for the first time, overtake telco services. So that moment of convergence is behind us. Another thing to note on the left, for every dollar of hardware and software, the channel partners make $2 in services. That $2 in services is growing faster than hardware and software. And I'll explain how that might get up to $6 if we look at this in 5 to 10 years. But guess what? In our industry, it's the same thing. 73.1% of those dollars flow to, through, and with partners. So again, we look a little bit like transactional folks. And this is what's changing. As the industry is going to surpass $5 trillion this year, this is what businesses and governments will spend in technology and telco, we're growing at 5% in a really tough world economy. And I'll say that, for 15 years now, I haven't had macroeconomic charts, or slides anywhere in my presentation. But here we are. And we're looking at macros that are very difficult. We've had 489,000 layoffs in the last 12 months. And the channel, much like marketing, has been disproportionately affected in terms of those layoffs. So we're watching the end of free money. And this is for not only us, it's not only for our partners, but it's for our end customers. Interest rates, high inflation, global conflict, supply chain shortages. We have half the world's population this year, including the United States, going to the voting booth. And this isn't just a center-left, center-right conversation in 50 countries. This could have impactful change on how foreign policy, how economics actually work, depending on how these shake out. We obviously have climate. 2023 was warmer than 2022 and the hottest on record. 2024 is going to surpass that. So in terms of how we react, not to just this as an issue, a political issue, but how our customers and our partners are going to react as they have the impacts in their locations. Energy is a problem. Supply chain is a problem. All the different things that we talk about later on here about Gen AI and all this massive processing takes a lot of fresh water. It takes a lot of electricity. We're at the point now where even in the United States, public utilities are metering down AWS data centers, not giving them the capacity to run at full steam. We've got disruptions in Latin America, where in Uruguay and Paraguay, there are protests in the street because the Google data center is getting more fresh water and they have nothing to drink. So these things are starting to impact us. And then cyber attacks keep growing. And now we got a new set of bad actors that are fueled by Gen AI. Can you imagine the next phishing email that knows your life inside and out? Hi, Jay. Hope you had fun at that party over the weekend. I saw so-and-so was there. That was great. Did you see the picture that they posted over here? I mean, these are the type of things that are going to be the next level. So those are kind of the challenges, but what are our partners saying? And this is really interesting because there's a historical context to this. You probably can't read this, but understand on the left that 1/3 of our partners around the world think they're going to grow in double digits this year, which is going to double the tech industry growth, which is going to be faster growth than any of the other 27 industries. This is a very optimistic set of people, and they're going to drive higher profit doing it. So the historical context is this. The last time we had kind of a global recession was 2008. What's interesting is I meet people that are 40 years old, more senior in their careers, senior directors in their career, who have never been through a layoff. When I spent 17 years to start my career at IBM, we had a layoff every quarter. I'd walk in and badge in and turn green. I'm good. Okay, I'm good for this quarter. And that was just the PTSD I live with. But the fact of the matter is, back in 2008, the most optimistic people in the world were the technology channel. And the technology industry pulled the world out of recession. And the tip of the spear were partners. Go backwards to 2001, the exact same thing happened. The technology industry pulled the world out of recession in 2001. Partners were the optimistic tip of the spear that led that change. This has happened 3 times now, and it's happening again. So here's where I'm going to make the case. These are major inflection points that we're going through in 2024. Some of them, on the last partner, when I was rolled in a refrigerator, broadcast live from Barcelona, I predicted, here's 10 things that are happening. I don't know how they're coming together, but here they are, and we should be aware of them. Well, they're starting to come together. They're starting to kind of coalesce into something that appears to be changing, generational changes for all of us in our careers, all of us in terms of how things happen. So I made this prediction years ago that obviously our buyer is getting younger. Well, 2024 is the year that the majority buyer of technology in that $5 trillion will be a millennial by the end of the year. The psychology is different, the buying behavior is different, the journey they're on is different. So many things are different. But this is the first time with this new buyer being the majority of our opportunity. Our market TAM now has a new buyer. So breaking down all the research in this area, it boils down to a couple things for us. Digital first. By the way, our partners are also becoming millennial-led at the same time. Digital first, subscription and consumption friendly. This is a generation that grew up with Netflix, charging them per month. This is a generation that's okay with Spotify. This is a generation that's okay paying $1 a month for a toothbrush forever. This is a generation that's okay with transportation as a service. Everything is very friendly. But the bottom stat is interesting. You ask this cohort, as they walk through those 28 moments before they make a decision, they don't want human interaction. I don't want a salesperson. I don't want to talk to somebody. I will buy $1 million of software and spend all 28 of those moments digitally. Here's some other things we know, and this is brand new. The criteria for these buyers is different. When you issue an RFP in the past, obviously price is important, service, support, your brand reputation. Number one criteria across the board now is integrations. So if somebody's going to buy in partner, the first thing they're thinking is, how do you work with PartnerTap? How do you work with all of the booths out there? That integration first buyer is now here. It's there in MarTech, it's there in AdTech. It's also there in car buying. You remember Apple stood up and said 79% of people won't buy a car today unless it has a technology integration. They didn't mention Android Auto, but the fact of the matter is the experience of buying a car is digital, and I need it to be connected to my life. I'm an integration-first buyer. Can you imagine being in a $4 trillion industry for 120 years? Your dealership has been passed down from your parents, from your grandparents, even your great-grandparents owned the local Ford dealership in town. All of a sudden, you're gonna miss 4/5 of your buyer because the vendor you're working with doesn't have the right integration. So what does this look like this year? The Porsche announcement, window to windshield, is now Apple CarPlay. Every pixel that faces the driver, the passengers, and the back seats is offered up by big tech, not a car company. Dave mentioned Aston Martin, same thing. Every pixel is now being led by big tech. So if you're a CEO of a car company, there's 63 major ones that make 365 kinds of car. Your buyer, at least 4/5 of them, want you to be technically integrated into their lives. This doesn't just go in front of the driver, it goes below the driver. There's gonna be 3 big companies that make batteries and motors and hydrogen cells. That's partnerships below the driver. There's partnerships out at the dealer level who own those relationships, the Ford dealership on Main Street. And then there's going to be partnerships in transportation as a service, when we pay $800 a month for our entire A to B transportation process. That's a world of partnerships. I think these companies probably need some partner leaders as CEO going forward. Because here's the risk, and it's a big risk. I mentioned the first 17 years of my career selling PCs. I wrapped other people's technology in plastic and metal. That's what we did. We had to source the raw materials. We had to build it in China. We had to ship it. We had to distribute it. And then when it didn't sell, we had to incent it. And then once we sold it, we had to warranty it for 3 years. The first 68 quarters of my financial results were negative. I never made money in 17 years. Wrapping other people's technology is not a business you want to be in. One little chip back then that no one had ever heard of, except for some niche gamers, was called NVIDIA. We wrapped that little NVIDIA chip. We bought it for $5. We charged $100 more, made the gamers happy. NVIDIA is over $1 trillion valued company today because that little chip happened to be the chip that makes Gen AI work. You don't want to be somebody that wraps technology. So General Motors said no to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I mean, it's a going out of business decision, but their longer term 10 and 20-year view of the world is they're going out of business anyway. If you lose the driver experience, if you lose below the driver, if you lose how the driver is going to access their cars via app, all you are is a sheet metal company. You're wrapping other people's technology in sheet metal. And that industry will go the way of the PC, and all the profits of that $4 trillion industry will go back up to the big tech companies, make them even more powerful. Second major change that we're going through right now is the end of the cookie. I've waited 30 years to put the Cookie Monster on a slide, and here it is. So we know this because Apple, who doesn't have skin in the game, 4 years ago started building into iOS the ability to not be the product on the internet, so that our personal privacy wasn't sold off by Cambridge Analytica and others. So that happened, but what just happened a couple of weeks ago is Google put the technology now into Chrome that allows you to block cookies. By the end of 2024, Google has committed 100% to the end of the cookie. We are no longer the products on the internet. So what does that mean? It means this whole world of third-party data, all of our moments getting sold by Facebook, by Google, by others, is coming to an end. And how we get to the data of those first 28 moments, which, back to my 28 moments, you can't buy these moments anymore. Your end customers, your partners, everything else in these moments now comes up for grabs. The world lands from third-party data to second-party data. There is, even inside GDPR and all the regulations, there is business-to-business relationships you can create. So if I happen to be that car company again, watching somebody as they go through the cycle, I don't get to see my customer for the first 20 moments. They're out on YouTube watching a guy race against Teslas, they're reading Motor Trend, they're doing all the things. They're talking to their neighbors and friends. I don't get to see them until they hit my website to configure, price, quote their car, add the color, add the rims they like. So those first 20 moments are now blocked, unless the car company can go partner with the person who owns those moments and gets an agreement that they can start sharing data earlier in the journey. So the reason I brought up Apple and Google is together they own 99% market share in mobile. Together, they own 86% market share in desktop browsing. Two companies are how all of us and all our partners and customers get to the internet. This end of the cookie is monumental for us, but for our CMOs that we may or may not talk to, we're gonna become very friendly people. Because these early moments, that the ebook that customer reads, the white paper, the podcast they listen to, all the things that influence them in those critical first moments now become us. And Impartner has built a company that actually becomes the platform for second-party data. Along the way, whether this was the vision or not, acquiring Amplifinity, acquiring Kinetics with a ridiculous Google set of technologies that no one else has, building up the TCMA platform as powerful as it is, and some moves that are coming that will create a ridiculously good second-party data platform where your CMO is now going to be asking you, how do we work better? And I need to replace the 13,080 ISV SaaS companies in MarTech and AdTech now with Channel Tech to go do this. But in a subscription, it doesn't stop in marketing. The purchase of a subscription is only the first 30 days with the customer. Whether that goes through a marketplace, whether that goes through direct, whether it goes through indirect, it doesn't matter. It's just money changing hands. But the adjacency around that is really important, and I need those signals. Those are the co-sell signals that you heard a lot about yesterday. But then the fun starts. Everything is about a customer for life. Every 30 days forever. Those signals keep going. Who's doing the implementations, the integrations? Who's doing the managed services? Who are the 7 people around the buyer? This is critical in this new world in terms of understanding how and what actions and tactics were taken and measuring over the life of this customer that now never ends. So this isn't just a marketing story. It's now second-party data for the entire customer journey. And we need now a platform that manages these 7 partners to get the customer to the dance, to get them on the dance floor, and keep them dancing all night long. That's the future, I believe, of Impartner. So I want to bring second-party data back into our world. One of my hobbies, which became a job, is creating how we get influenced. Last March, all of us as being technology people started getting calls from our family, our friends, our neighbors about Gen AI. What is this? Are we lighting up Skynet here? Really, is Arnold Schwarzenegger gonna come back and this is the moment? We all had to get smart fast. So if I asked every one of you individually, and by the way, collectively there's 10 million of us, what do you read? Where do you go? And who do you follow? Because at that moment you had to get smart quickly. 12% of us went to podcasts and went to our favorite podcasts and listened to some great information there. 35% of us came to an event like this. 33% of us went to email newsletters, News on Demand, another acquisition by Impartner. But we went and did things, and there's 14 different things that influence how we think about ChatGPT and Bard and Genesis, NVIDIA, and all the other layers of Gen AI. So every single one of these, as channel marketers, we publish. So if you want to know the 270 events like this one, published it last Monday. If you want to know who the 107 magazines are globally in every country, published last Wednesday. So all of these are published. So 10 million people in vendor channel roles. There's about 10 million people in VAR, MSP, reseller type of roles. 20 million people come down to 1,000 watering holes total. 1,000 watering holes come down to about 100 super connectors using these platforms to spread great thought leadership and other things. In the room, there's more than 10 of these world super connectors. You should know who they are, and you should use the networking breaks to introduce yourself, build your personal brand, and understand what they do. This is the power that surrounds your customer. This surrounds your partner. This is the second-party data story. And being able to bring this together, the billions upon billions of dollars that today go to Google and Facebook are coming to us. Another major change that's coming underneath this is how partnering actually works. And it's interesting when you have this conversation about the economics of partnering, because partnering has always been about the point of sale. Every one of our programs was geared towards a set of front-end margins, back-end margins, gross to nets that service that partner. Early days at IBM, August 12th, 1981, when the first channel was built around the PC. It was all about the margin. Back then it was 40% margin. But I assume you're reselling, you're taking the customer's money, and there's a lot that comes to that. Not only do you take their money, but you take on the risk that they're not gonna pay. You also take on this time cost of money. Net 30, net 60 turns into net 90, turns into net 120. And then you have to go hire Biff to break knees when they don't pay. That entire thing we thought was worth something, 10, 20, 30% margin. But because the partners made the money there, they gave away the consulting for free, the design for free, architecture, implementation, integration. Here's 100 things they gave away for free because there was one point of transaction. And there's one point of making money. That's now gone. Well, the fallacy in this, the problem with this is the second part. We all have a selection of partners, the good, the bad, the ugly. We have these wonderful partners that do all the marketing. They do the selling. They do the engineering. They do everything. We win the deal in our sleep. One sales rep at our company goes on 100% club, but when they look at themselves in the mirror, they know the real story. That partner we underpaid. Why? Because we had to average that margin with the partner that showed up at the 11th hour on an RFP, bid $5 less than the person who did all the work, wins the deal, collects the money, is gone in the night. Didn't do anything before, didn't do anything after. Both those partners make the exact same amount of money. It's a problem. So what happens when we can break that down? And it's really not good for subscriptions because you're paying this big bucket of money just to get the customer on the dance floor. I'd rather spread that out like peanut butter and pay them to get the customer to the dance. I really want to spend the money keeping them dancing all night long, and I need a better way to do that. I need to monitor those partner moments of value. I need to measure those moments around that point of sale, original, and I need to measure every moment for 30 days forever. I mentioned integration first buyer. I have to measure all of my technology alliance partners. I have to measure all my strategic and business alliance partners. I have 6 sets of partnerships now that I want to incent, and I want to take this big bucket of money and make sure I'm putting the money in the right place, not just at this point of sale. So here's something that happened that was interesting, is that a couple of years ago, Microsoft took their marketplace from 20% margin, or marketplace fees, down to 3%. And basically they said, Satya said, I don't want to make money off of my ecosystem. It was a direct shot at AWS. It was a direct shot at Salesforce, who make a lot of money. Apple is in court with Epic, charging them 30% of everything, charging the New York Times 40% to be part of Apple News. That's a bad actor. You shouldn't be making money off your ecosystem. You should be working together. So Google followed within 30 days, and just a few months ago, AWS finally followed, and it's 3% or less. But these companies have basically told the world, including all of our end customers, the value of resell, collecting risk, time cost of money, and BIF is 3%. That's it. Which coincidentally is the same amount of money when you swipe your credit card. B2C, B2B, consumer, credit card, resell, it's all the same. It's 3%. So now we go back, well, I'm paying my partners 20% margin for that. Well, over time you won't be. That particular thing is worth 3%. And by the way, in many cases, your partner has to share that margin with distribution. TD SYNNEX is here. So in the world of resell, that's what it is. It's now visible. It's now transparent in terms of what that is. But it doesn't mean we're going to narrow everything down and pull a Broadcom here. It means that we're going to go and be smarter about how we spend our money and start to look at our world like this new buyer, a 7-layer stack. And yeah, InPartner has 5 or 6 of these layers and you can go all in, or you can build out some other technologies. And these are very small logos, but the whole idea of this layered stack comes in. That says, if I truly want to do co-sell, not only do I have to go look at a partner tab, a Crossbeam or a Reveal, not only should I think about attribution with companies like Impact or Partnerize or Awin, not only should I have a TCMA strategy. The best way to see second-party data was when the opens, the clicks, the engagement happen on our platform. We can see it in real time. But I should also have a deal reg, opportunity reg, lead passing engine. There's 5 layers of a stack just to do co-sell. That's a platform sell. And there's 233 entrepreneurial companies, rushing to integrate with InPartner as a platform to go serve up this new second-party data, this new opportunity. Let me go back to Microsoft because it's important. Microsoft a couple of years also took the lead in a shock and awe campaign that's still on the front cover of magazines to the channel. They bring out a point system. We're extracting money from the point of sale because the board didn't give them any extra money, and we're going to spread it like peanut butter. We're going to start applying points for that ebook, for that podcast, for that event, for that. We're going to apply points right to the end. At the same time, they put out a new commerce experience, allowing a customer to go from direct to marketplace to partner and back again easily with one agreement. They put all the risk of the customer not purchasing back on the partner. It was shock and awe. The channel chief quit, left the industry, now is back as channel chief of Cisco, but it was impactful. The decoder ring behind the point system is insane on how to make money. You talk about confusing systems, but here it is. Microsoft went to Wall Street 2 years ago and said this: we're going to be a company that has large, reliable, repeatable, and scalable revenue. You can bank on our ability to retain. We're going to put 2/3 of all of our gross to nets, all of our margins that we've had forever, post-sale. We're going to deliver Wall Street 108% retention. Meaning if we lose a customer, we're going to take our other customers and double them up. And that, we think, is more valuable company than relying on a great smartphone launch every September. Because there's so much risk in screwing that up at least one of the years. And the market finally responded by making them the most valuable company last week. This is the play. It was started in the ecosystem. It was started with a channel program, but it led to company results, and it led to a seat at the table for partnership teams. This is the valuation that every company is trying to deliver to their shareholders, and it all sits in this room. So let's talk about this platform. When I said that every company in every industry wants to be a tech company, it's actually not true. They want to be a platform company. They understand their buyer is going to buy 7 things in a stack. You want to be layer 1. InPartner wants to be layer 1 for this buyer. But they understand in a platform economy, things work a little bit differently. So they're watching, obviously, the trillion-dollar valued companies. Every one of the biggest companies in the world, the Magic 7, are all platform companies. But beyond that, when you look at Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, Marketo, NetSuite, HubSpot, these are platform companies that are worth 30, 40, 50 billion. Salesforce is worth 250 billion. Platform companies have gravity. They're like the sun in a universe, and they have planets that rotate around them. They have customers that come in. They have technology integrations that come in. They run the marketplace. They run the economics. They want to be the platform for their customer. Again, whether you're selling pharmaceuticals or banking, fintech products, or cars, the platform economy is where it's at. There's a 91-page paper here that you can go download from HubSpot. I partnered in with HubSpot and partnership leaders to explain this in detail. What kind of people do you need? How many people do you need? What are the processes? What are the programs? What's the underlying technology? Like, here's the entire story by looking at the 50 biggest platforms in the world and how they did what they did to drive shareholder value. Every company wants to become a platform to drive subscription models, consumption models, usage-based models, value-based models through a marketplace, through a product-led growth model. It doesn't matter. This model comes down to attaining level 1, layer 1 platform status. So now CEOs, which I mentioned 82% want more partnerships, they used to just talk in terms of TAM. Now, my market is 10 billion, 100 billion, whatever it is. This is how we think of our company. We want our fair share of the TAM. CEOs and boards are having these ridiculous conversations with analysts about the SAM, the available market, serviceable, available, the obtainable market. Let's talk go-to-market. Let's talk routes to market. Not just where the cash registers are, but let's talk about the 7 partners on average that surround every one of my companies. How did Microsoft outsell AWS for 19 straight quarters now? They don't have a better product. They don't have a better price. They don't have better promotion. Last time I checked, they're not running a Super Bowl ad. They have a better place. But more than that, they have a better partnership system. 470,000 partners, 400 new partners that join every single day in this gravity of the platform. And they have the majority of those 7 people that surround every customer talking Azure, not AWS, not GCP. The surround strategy is what made it, and every company is now having these conversations which involve us in the board. It involves us at the C-suite having these conversations because that's what we do. But again, when you're not looking for partners as cash registers, We're not selling donuts or coffee franchised on the street corner. We're looking at partners who own our buyer. You know, you think of that when Tiffany yesterday said the CMO spends more than the CIO in many companies. I want those partners that all they think about all day long is the CMO. They're horizontal everywhere else. They just focus on CMOs. I don't care what your industry is. I don't care what size your company is. I don't care where you are. I am obsessed with one buyer. I'm obsessed with an industry or a sub-industry. Mid-sized banks is all I do. I'm horizontal everywhere else. Country, market segment. I mean, you can say you're SMB. SMB has 6 segments. Are you 1 to 9 or are you 250 to 499? It's like comparing consumer to the Fortune 500. It's totally opposed. So where specifically are you and where do you focus? Where in the product categories? You might be an MSSP. All you do is security. You're in one product area. So as I'm selecting my partners out of the very big audience that exists, millions of partners, 20 different partner types, I'm surrounding my customer. When my customer sees it as a team sport, you'll know for who follows team sports, you don't have all of one player. You don't have 11 Tom Bradys on the field, or today, Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey and Taylor Swift. You have different players. Your customer doesn't want 7 MSPs. They don't want 7 Accentures. They want one GSI. They want one MSP. They want one VAR. They want one digital agency if they happen to be a CMO. 78% of the 200,000 digital agencies are now tech services companies. That's what they do. So this is the new partnering model. I'm not just trying to recruit VARs. I'm trying to recruit the 7 people that surround my customer and every one of my customers in my TAM. And I'm going to run this surround strategy to go win. I mentioned economics. Marketplaces are growing at 86% compounded. They're almost doubling themselves every year in size. So here's a couple of predictions we made. One is that we predicted by 2025 it'd be $45 billion running through cloud marketplaces. This is not just the hyperscalers, Microsoft, AWS, Google. It's Salesforce, it's ServiceNow, it's the others. It's the top 20. We got it wrong. This year, we're going to hit 45 billion early. We made another prediction that AWS would become a top 10 distributor. They would join the likes of TD SYNNEX and Ingram, Arrow, and others on the top line by 2025. Got it wrong. Got it wrong by 2 years. They're already there. By the end of 2023, they're now the top 10 in the top 10 list. Now in 3 to 5 years, they're probably going to be knocking on the door of TD SYNNEX, who itself happens to be bigger than McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Starbucks. These are big, big companies. 4 companies issued press releases in the last couple of months saying that they're over billion-dollar businesses just on AWS. CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Splunk, which is now part of Cisco, and Snowflake, a data company, are running billion-dollar businesses on a single marketplace. This is big. This is a change. This feeds the new buyer. 7-layer stacks, a group of 7 people you kind of need to pay, and all that complexity brought down to one place, which is digital marketplace. But it's not just going to be cloud marketplaces. There is now a 7-layer conversation around marketplaces that we need to have. So again, when our executive teams are talking about routes to market, go to market, we need to figure out in our TAM how much of that is influenced by traditional distribution and reseller channels, which today is 73% of our industry. We have to talk about these new cloud distributors. Pax8 is the fastest growing logo on this entire chart, soon to create billionaires for the owners. You get into Australia through Dicker data in the traditional distribution sense and NextGen in the cloud distribution sense, for example. Talked about cloud marketplaces, but I mentioned that tech services overtook telco, but the telco master agents, now called tech solution distributors. There used to be 25 of them 5 years ago. Now there's about 5. They've all consolidated down. They're all becoming tech companies, playing hard. All the big aggregators are here. The MSP providers. Managed services now a $500 billion market. Over 1 out of every $10 now spent in tech is in a managed contract. There's 335,000 companies now with at least one managed contract that they're servicing. This is a different market, and now these platforms are becoming much larger. Billionaires are being created. The first two out of the first 3 logos in managed services there created billionaires, and there's more to come. Yesterday, Ninja on the right just raised $241 million in a really bad private equity market. Do you know who wrote checks into Ninja, just for conspiracy theorists? The CEO of Snowflake, the biggest data company in the world and on this rocket ship on Gen AI, and the CEO of Datadog. Why would 2 of the fastest growing Gen AI companies in the world care about managed services? Well, think about the rich data that's being collected from these remote management tools around every IT department in the world. That's why they care. This is a line that becomes a marketplace and distribution angle. And then there's 150 marketplace development firms that will white label and build out marketplace technology. But this is a really different go-to-market than we would have had 18 months ago. We have to be experts at this. We have to know our TAM, our SAM, our SOM to the nickel to know that we have cash registers on every street corner that our customer wants to buy, and we're reducing friction for those customers. But we have to teach ourselves another language as well in a platform economy. Again, you're not talking about gold, silver, bronze. You're not talking about your latest spiff. You're not talking about the point of sale as much anymore. So what do you talk about? Well, why don't you just go follow the top 50? You know, Mark Benioff now for 10 years has kicked off Salesforce with this Salesforce economy. You know, trillions of dollars and jobs and blah, blah, blah. But suffice it to say, for everyone in the room, he calls it Ohana, your customers, your partners, your employees, 185,000 people listening. For every dollar of Salesforce that we sell, it takes $6.19 to get it to work. As a customer, you can insource some of that, you can outsource some of that, but suffice it to say, if you're thinking of buying $100,000 of CRM product from us, I hope you have $719,000 in your project plan to get it to work. That's the Salesforce economy. That's a multiplier number. I talked about HubSpot is $5.80. Google is $5.70. Microsoft is $7.63, but they're unlocking trillions. If you actually do the math, it is trillions that they're unlocking for the channel in that model. Here's a Canalys report at AWS. This was reInvent last year, $6.40. But when you break it down for a partner, here's your QBR conversation. You know, that point of procurement is interesting in gray, but it's 3%. Let's break down where the other parts are. In green are the 28 moments before that customer buys. The consulting, the design, the architect, all this wonderful work you can be doing before the point of sale. They're gonna buy 7 things. Look at the build, the darker gray. Around, adjacent to that point of sale, putting it all together and deploying it. Now you get into the longer term blue and teal, which is the managed services, the adoption services. So here's the entire window of hundreds of services that fit inside that $6 multiplier. So the second slide to the QBR looks like this. You are an MSP, that is fantastic. AWS, if your customer's gonna consume $100,000 of AWS, you can go make $100,000 as an MSP. Divide that by 36, that's the price you charge to manage that cloud environment. Well, that's interesting. Well, let's keep talking. That consulting and the design and other stuff you used to give away for free, the GSIs aren't giving that away for free. Why don't you go charge for that? There's another $1 in each of those categories. Why don't you go build some custom software? Not to compete, but you're gonna be at layer 7. So this is the model that we're moving towards. I'm going to finish with Gen AI, because you can't have a presentation now without Gen AI. But for our partners, it's not the same. $4 trillion, against a $105 trillion world economy. But look at the language. It's all about ecosystems. It's partnerships first, the two companies that are behind most of this. But for partners last year, they drove about 15 billion out of the 5 trillion, so not a big number. It's going to be 158 by 2028, and a 59% growth rate is something that none of our partners can avoid. So it goes back to that conversation. Well, guess what? A third of our partners are pretty skeptical. They've lived through last year the metaverse moment. 10 years ago, they lived through the IoT moment. They've lived through every emerging tech moment and been kind of disappointed. Well, Gen AI now is a different story. For the first time, it's not IoT, it's not automation, robotics, or blockchain, or quantum computing. It's not self-driving cars, drones. It's not the metaverse. I mean, all these are, sound wonderful for the customer. For the first time, Gen AI is an internal strategy. How do I rethink my marketing, my selling, my customer success? How do I rethink my invoicing, my billing, my service tickets? Every part of my organization, before I ever talk to a client, can be rethought with generative AI. Finally, we have an internal technology that we can make them better. But back to the flywheel. All kinds of data, all kinds of opportunities. But in the first few years, it's going to mostly be consulting. Nobody's implementing large language models or tuning them at this point. After a year or two, it's going to be design and architecture. After that, it's going to get into some edge-type services. 85% of the world's data sits on premises. The large language models sit in trillion-dollar public clouds. All the CEOs of the public cloud companies have admitted that they're not forklifting the data back into public clouds. There's no room, there's no water, there's no electricity to do that. The work is going to be done at the edge. But we're talking 3, 4, 5 years from now. I would be focusing on managed services, I'd be focusing on security, I'd be focusing on every part of my business that's growing by double digits. I wouldn't be hanging out for this yet. The AI services on the left would be the richest ones. The system integrators are probably going to win. The next, all the software companies, including in partner, are going to be building all kinds of features, because that's what this is a feature. It's not a product. Second, the data services, the snowflakes, the data dogs, all the data-related stuff. Building out data lakes is third. And then finally, we'll be selling some more routers and switches, some more storage and compute, putting GPUs out at the edge, out on our edge devices. But this is how it's going to go over the next 5 years. So hopefully I made the case. You got a new buyer. You got a new set of economics. You've got a new set of revenue and how it's going to work, from marketing to selling to customer success. And then you've got this platform economy. Given all this, and given whatever industry you're in, your partner's in, your customer's in, I probably want a very partner-friendly person running the show. Because again, it's not going to be your product that wins. They rarely do. It's not going to be your price that wins. It's not in the criteria anymore. It's not going to be your promotion that wins. Go nuts this weekend on a $7 million Super Bowl ad. It's always going to be the place. There's 7 people around every buyer in your TAM. You either have the room or you don't. And that's it. I want somebody directing my ship. If I'm selling cars, if I'm selling drugs, legal drugs, if I'm selling, I won't get into that ecosystem. If I'm selling manufactured goods, if I'm selling John Deere tractors, it doesn't matter. I need to surround my customer. I need to implement the second-party data. I need to change everything so I get the riches and that it doesn't just flow back to big tech. Thank you.